of course, many of you probably already have a good feeling about why do we need to go through transformation? Too many institutions are achieving that balanced budget through continuous underinvestment. I know as a college president myself, you just had to make do with the resources that you had and the revenue that you had. But oftentimes what happened is that you started cutting here and there to make do. So maybe we're not paying, people where we should be. We're not paying market rates. We're not fully funding depreciation, and on and on. We might even be running a structural deficit. So what happens is when you start adding all this stuff and adding the things that you should be spending on that you're not, those numbers get pretty large. And it helps set context on your journey that really incremental change is just not going to be enough. But this cost cutting and underinvesting, for 5 or 10 years basically erodes the competitive position. And a different model is simply needed. And particularly small and mid-sized institutions, they're really carrying the brunt of this. And small and mid-sized institutions just don't have the depth of resources nor the economies of scale. When you think about the alternatives, oftentimes institutions are on that incremental pathway, but that really creates and fosters really an uncertain future. Or what I'm going to say, doing small things when large things are required. And what happens is it results in a high probability of just a continuous decline, which then can ultimately lead to a loss of mission. But when you start moving on a path of transformation, all of a sudden you start to get clarity and confidence. And overall, this is a lower risk alternative compared to just staying the status quo and a higher probability of prosperity. So when we think about transformation, we have to think about how we operate, the depth of our thinking, and how we develop and implement strategy that aligns to the marketplace. And it really requires a fundamental shift of our organizational assumptions. So these are things that are not easy, and it's not done overnight. It takes years to accomplish that.
So the way I would want you to think about core is, you've bought all these vendors over a period of time, and every one of those partnerships was brought in for a reason to do X in terms of Y, right, or on a schedule. And it definitely has its merits, but I want to go back to the topic of today, which is transformation. So we know a couple of things about transformation is incremental doesn't necessarily work to transform, and it has to be a significant, meaningful, and holistic. We can't tackle transformation by chipping here, improving that, and improving that. It needs a comprehensive, holistic, and significant focus. It's tough. And so when you think about transformation, you want to think differently because you want to think comprehensively. That's where core is at active management. We're doers. So you obviously has a need that making you think about transformation differently. And that's where core can come in. We work with what you have. We meet the college where you are without replicating, without maybe being redundant. But you're going to find a transformative scope where holistically, you'll want to engage a partner like core that has pretty much all the talents and can meet you where you are.